How you doing, guys? This is Matthias Atva from Direct Dreadnought, your Dreadnought PS4 replay guy. It's the weekend, so instead of posting one of my awesome replays, we are going to continue with our review of Dreadnought Officer Briefings with Part 2, Gunnery. Before we get started, as I stated in the previous review on communications, Officer Briefings won't instantly turn you from a Dreadnought Zero into a Dreadnought Hero. Briefings take a while to grind, and while they are meant to complement certain gameplay styles, they are the icing on the cake, not the cheese and toppings on the pizza. The quickest way to get better at Dreadnought is to develop good basic game techniques, which I cover in my 5 tips to make you a better Dreadnought player video, and to develop solid module builds on your favorite ships, which I will be covering in future videos. Most of the 101 officer briefings that you start with are good enough to carry you through to victory once you have established a gameplay style that is right for you. However, once you acquire your favorite ships and gain valuable gameplay experience, it may be time to branch out and gain that slight edge on your opponents by grinding other ships to get better officer briefings. But before you waste hours grinding out briefings that may not improve your performance, let's explore officer briefings to find out which ones are worth your time and will help your game. Okay, so let's dive in. Today we're going to take a look at gunnery officer briefings, how they work, how to get them, where to find them, and how they are currently being used in the Dreadnought gameplay meta. First, let's take a look at Gunnery 101. Gunnery 101 is a solid and dependable gunnery briefing that will always help you win battles no matter the circumstances or the situation. It is the hard counter to Engineering 101 and delivers an additional 6.5% damage increase to your primary and secondary weapons fire without condition. Even after hundreds of hours of gameplay and grinding through almost every officer briefing in the game, I still use Gunnery 101 on my Jupiter arms and Aquila Vector destroyers and all my dreadnoughts. Let's do some game math. Let's take a weapon that does 1000 DPS, which is quite low. Let's say you use this weapon 50% of the time over the course of the match and have a fair accuracy and hit your target 50% of the time. With an average match length of 13 minutes, Gunnery 101 will add 195,000 damage over the course of the match. Wow! Remember, even a stream can cut through a mountain over time. Players become infatuated with big damage spikes and the large 20 and 30% promises of other gunnery briefings, but these briefings all have conditions and will never deliver these promises 100% or even 50% of the time. It breaks my heart to see some players grind through to module amper so they can run up to an enemy formation in a Jupiter destroyer and launch a Goliath nuke with 30% more damage without even firing their main guns. If you do this, you don't understand the Jupiter Arms philosophy of utilitarian ship design supported by superior firepower. If you run a lot of defensive or support modules and depend on your main guns for most of your kills, especially ships that like to brawl and take damage like Jupiter Arms destroyers, then Gunnery 101 will be your faithful friend, deliver dependable damage over time, and you should first look to replace other 101 briefings such as Communications 101. Next, let's take a look at the only Jupiter Arms Gunnery Officer briefing available on the Tier 4 artillery cruiser, the Onager, Survival Instinct. Ironically named because if your instinct is to survive a match and to get a high score, any other officer briefing is for you. Survival Instinct is in hard competition for the worst officer briefing of the game, but it is definitely the worst officer briefing in the gunnery category. If your main ship class is the Jupiter Arms artillery line, I'm sorry, because you need to purchase this skill to continue on to the Grenada, and it is a novel collector's item, but you really don't want to use this briefing on most artillery cruiser builds. You will get far more benefits sticking to Gunnery 101. In past game versions, Survival Instinct used to be a niche briefing used for the Super Gun combo, which paired this briefing with Rapid Fire module and turned the artillery cruiser main gun into a sort of machine gun, but only in certain circumstances. This skill used to read minus 50% reload time when hull was below 50%. However, since the Steam update, this already infrequently used briefing got a nerf so that you only get the minus 50% reload time if you are at 25% hull or less. So maybe the most stubborn users of rapid fire may still want to intentionally absorb fire to bring their hull down to 25% in order to pull off some kind of rare trick combo, but for the most of us who want real and tangible benefits from our gunnery officers, please go for any other gunnery officer briefing, or better yet, save yourself the grind and stick with Gunnery 101. Now, let's take a look at a useful gunnery officer briefing that's actually worth the grind, the first of two Akula Vector gunnery briefings, Module Amper, found on the Akula Vector Tier 4 destroyer, the Blood. Module Amper is a very unique and efficient gunnery briefing that may not be best used on the destroyer line it's found in, but is a game-changing officer briefing for many other ships. Module Amper boosts the damage and healing effects of your modules. It should be noted that this is the only way to add additional damage or healing effects to modules. Many new players believe that by putting power to weapons it will also boost the damage of their missiles and torpedoes, and this is actually incorrect. It should also be noted that by equipping Module Amp, you will lose the 6.5% damage buff from Gunnery 101, but you will not lose the plus 30% damage increase to the power of your guns when you put power to weapons. This has to go down as the most efficient way to use power to weapons in the game. Module Amper states that when you put power to weapons, which boosts your primary and secondary gun power, that while active, your module damage and healing effects are also boosted by 30%. Wow! To use this briefing for missiles, pods, or any other deployable or instant module, you put power to weapons for about 3 seconds as the module is being used, and the damage or healing will be boosted. Examples of this would be artillery and healing pods, or any missile or torpedo salvo. Other modules that require continuous use, such as damage or repair auto beams, require that you keep power to weapons to maintain this bonus, and once power to weapons is turned off, the module returns to its normal damage or healing levels. This briefing is exceptional for ships that depend on modules and have low gun power, especially tactical cruisers. This is the briefing that makes artillery and healing pods so powerful. Simply put, power to weapons for a few seconds as you launch these pods, and for the rest of the life of these pods, they are 30% more effective. This briefing also makes ambush modules such as Plasma Ram and Assault Blink Warp even more deadly, as its bonuses are applied to these as well. A 27,000 damage hit that ignores shields, yes please. On top of all this, if you are shooting at anyone while you are boosting your modules, your gun power gains the normal plus 30% as well, making power to weapons efficient and deadly. A word to the wise, boosting a salvo of missiles or torpedoes with 30% more damage sounds like a lot, but if you are launching missiles once a minute and they often miss their target, and you are firing your guns constantly, you probably want to stick with Gunnery 101, as you will get more damage done over time. Although this briefing will boost the damage of status effect modules like Disruptor Pulse, it has no effect on the actual effect duration of these types of modules. Okay, so let's take a look at the second gunnery officer briefing in the Akula Vector tree, Destruction Cascade, found on the Tier 4 Akula Vector corvette, the Strybog. Destruction Cascade offers the highest primary and secondary weapon damage boost in the Dreadnought game, bar none, but with quite an important and often challenging condition. However, if you want the highest damage boost to your guns and are literally willing to kill to get it, well then this is the gunnery officer briefing for you. Destruction Cascade grants you plus 30% damage to your weapons for 20 seconds after you score a kill. This recently got buffed in the Steam update and is up from 10 seconds. This is a very strong and compelling officer briefing for long-distance snipers and ambush predators. If you can clip someone with a bomb catapult, ram, blink warp, or just flak them to death, for the next 20 seconds after, you get plus 1/3 gun damage. If you put power to weapons on top of all this, then you are doing plus 60% gun damage. This ability also stacks with other damage buffs such as Weapon Booster and Amplifier, but this ability only lasts 20 seconds, so you have to acquire a new target quickly and efficiently for you to reap the rewards. The other drawback is that you actually have to kill your first target. We've all faced off with ships that use quick maneuvering, armor amps, or healers and just won't seem to die. If you go head to head with a tanky Dread and you have Destruction Cascade and they have Gunnery 101, the entire time you are fighting it out, they're getting a 6.5% damage bonus and you are getting a big fat 0. Also, if you are trying to kill a slippery artillery cruiser or corvette with glass cannon, if you can't land your shots, they will be getting a huge damage buff while you are not. This is best used on ships that hit hard and fast and can quickly find new victims through using either speed or range. Many cocky players who claim to be elite swear by this briefing and say it's no problem getting that first kill, and many can back up that claim, but if you are looking for a gunnery briefing that is more consistent and helps you stay alive even if you don't finish off your opponents, you may want to choose another gunnery officer briefing. The last officer briefing we have in the gunnery category is the only Oberon gunnery briefing, the infamous glass cannon, found on the Tier 4 Oberon artillery cruiser, the Nimble Knox. Glass cannon used to be avoided by most players and only used by the most die-hard artillery and corvette captains, but recently got a huge buff in the Steam update. Glass cannon gives you plus 20% weapon power boost if your hull is at full. It used to have a penalty of minus 25% weapon damage if your hull was less than full, causing most players to avoid using this powerful briefing. However, now that that penalty is gone, now if you take any damage using glass cannon, you simply lose the plus 20% bonus and do regular weapon damage. This is now an extremely popular officer briefing, well worth the grind, for all artillery cruisers and many corvette and ambush destroyer builds. Artillery cruisers spend much of the game out of harm's way or out of the range of their enemies, and when they are at full health and have power to weapons, they are doing an insane plus 50% damage on all their already hard-hitting shots. Park next to a destroyer with weapon booster pulse, work with a Dreadnought using armor breaker ammo, or have a healer hit you with a weapon booster missile, and you are doing well over double damage and can sink several ships in the game with a single hit. That's amazing. Take an onager into a legendary match and have a buddy weapon boost you, and while glass cannon is active, you can hit unshielded Tier 5 ships for over 20,000 damage per double shot, well outside of the return fire range. If you watch my artillery cruiser replays, you've seen me insta-kill corvettes, artillery cruisers, and tacticals using this powerful briefing. Glass cannon isn't just for artillery cruisers either. Ambushers like corvettes and Vindictas, who often hide and stalk their prey before they strike, will have their hull at full before launching their attacks. This means they will add the 20% damage and devastate their targets before they even know it hit them. Jupiter Arms corvettes can use this briefing to devastate unsuspecting targets for insane amounts of damage while keeping their shields up, which blocks 100% damage and keeps glass cannon going even longer. The downside to glass cannon is that if anything hits you, no matter how low the damage, such as a scramble pulse, disruptor missile, stray shot, or even an onslaught assault ship, you lose the bonus and only do normal damage. When I'm in my destroyer, I often pepper artillery cruisers with a couple of shots at 7 kilometers just to turn off their glass cannon and then move to engage a closer target. That being said, I now use glass cannon on all my artillery and corvettes. But if you like to get into the thick of the fighting, especially if you're a Dreadnought, you want to stay clear of glass cannon. Okay, that sums up the Dreadnought Gunnery Officer Briefing review. I hope this helped you to decide which gunnery briefings to grind for, or if you're a Dreadnought or Destroyer Brawler Captain, helped you not to waste your time by sticking with Gunnery 101. Next week, we'll continue our Officer Briefing review series with Part 3, Navigation. If you missed Part 1 on Communications Briefings, feel free to check that out on my YouTube channel, Direct Dreadnought. Well, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you soon in Sinley Bay.